Mel, 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 Mel. Everybody, I'm Anthony's cat. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Just want to talk about a few earnings today and what to expect maybe tomorrow. The first I'm going to go to is the big dog here, Apple's ticker symbol AAPL. Looking at Apple, I didn't think it was going to fail today, even though there's a lot of fear about consumer recessions, which actually might have a little bit of merit, just judging by how some of the other, retail consumer based stocks have been doing just absolutely horrible over this past week. But it's just judging by the technical, it looked like it was probably going to end up bouncing up rather than going down. One of the reasons why that is, if you just look at the monthly chart of Apple, APPL, you can see that the 20-month moving average is still pointing up and can potentially serve as support on its way up. And certainly it seems like it's been doing that over the last month or two. So short term, I think it favors it going up, although it does have a little bit of like a rolling over look. But that's kind of how Apple looked for really over like 2 decades. It looks like it's going to roll over, and it does kind of roll over here around the great financial crisis. But then it looks like it's going to roll over and just have a little bit of correction. Looks like it's going to roll over. Looks like it's just going to have a little bit of correction. So it always looks like it's going to roll over. But the thing about Apple that I do not like now, I do have exposure to Apple just simply from like retirement funds and index funds and whatnot. I'm not really that bullish on Apple over the long term. I mean, I might be bullish on it over the next week, over the next few months, over the next few years, but I'm not bullish on it over the whole decade or more. And part of the reason why is just because RSI just keep look like it looks starting to look a little bit more exhausted, to be completely honest with you. And if I just kind of pull up this thing here, you can see that as price continued to go up here since, really since the September 2020, price continued trying to make some highs over here, but it's really been doing it on pretty exhausted momentum over here. This is not a good sign for Apple over the longer term. Now, I do think that there is a potential for RSI to, break above, but even then, it might still kind of falter for the future. And it does give me a little bit of appearance that I'm a little bit worried about this stock, to be completely honest with you. If you look at what the whales have been doing, I'm just going to pull up the Blackhead fund flow here. I mean, you still have whales coming in, really throughout 2020, 2021, 2022, they did exit. And if you look at overall trend over the last 2 decades, you're really seeing a lot of these kind of reducing outflow and very, very peak inflow, reducing outflow to very, very peak inflow. It's been going on for quite some time. But you can see now you're actually starting to have a little bit more outflow around 2022 or so. And the trend seems to actually be weakening for Apple. So what does it mean, right? Now, remember what I'm talking about. Trend exhaustion based on RSI and also the whale inflow seems to also be a little bit exhausted. If you look at the Fintel.io data, which tells you institutional accumulation, really since the 2000, you actually have some slight decrease in institutional ownership of Apple. Now, this is not a knock on Apple short term by any means. I mean, you still have about 65% institutional ownership, which is nothing to sneeze at. It's got great cash flow. It continues to buy back its stock. But I do think there's a lot of lack of interest there starting to come pile in for Apple. First of all, there's a loss of interest in the stocks, as I was showing you. You just have a couple of failed products that's been spending millions and billions on, including the Apple Vision Pro, which is not working out. You have the Apple Car, which is also not working out. They currently don't really have the AI narrative. They don't really know in terms of what the potential next innovation is going to be. They're profiting from phones and services, but there's really a little bit of a lack of direction, if you will, coming up next. And you also have the prior innovators that have really built this company over the last 20, 30 years. They're not there anymore. What is really left on the helm is a businessman who wants to buy back shares and pay dividends and just upgrade the phone marginally. So I have a hard time really buying into Apple's long-term thesis here, and it does keep looking a little bit more exhausted really since this peak right here around September 2020. It's been going up, but again, the RSI is not looking very good. So I'm like to, if I can, I'd like to limit my exposure to Apple for the long term. I cannot really do that if I'm in index fund. I think they're probably going to end up being very stable because it's a big weighting. It's no longer number one. I think Microsoft has taken the helm of being the number one stock in S&P 500. Apple's number two. You're going to continue to have inflow coming in. People are just buying index funds. And Apple's probably going to do very well over the next few years. The problem is I do see Apple potentially just getting left behind over the years. And there's a potential that this stock can underperform over time. But if you're just talking about the short term, I'm going to put up the weekly here. There are a few things that are looking very, very bullish on the weekly. First of all, if you look at just the RSI, it's really in oversold territory. Like right now, it's a very, very oversold territory. It's very similar to where it was over here around May of 2022 when things were bad. Also, it was very, very similar to November, December 2018, right around the time we had the trade conflict. So because of this narrative of how Apple is suffering from a lot of short-term headwind, there is actually room for it to potentially go up a lot higher in the short term. Another indicator that tells me I think Apple is going to do okay for the short term, which means the stock market is probably also going to do okay in the short term, is look at the on-balance volume. You can see there is actually a very clear bullish divergence over here that's been building up for a very long time now, for about like half a year, right? Price just kind of went down when the on-balance volume actually went up. Like this is a pretty classic bullish divergence. So a lot of bullish energy has been building up. I think price is probably going to end up going a lot higher. And if you're a trader, you should trade ranges, right? I mean, this is the top of the range right here. This is the bottom of the range right here. You're at the bottom of the range. You buy. That's what you do. Institutions set the floor. Institutions tend to think that, hey, around 165-ish is probably where I want to be. And the traders kind of sniffed it out. And, the volume also kind of sniffed it out. Next thing you know, the traders probably going to bidding the bottom and probably going to push it back over perhaps to the top of the range right there, and then we'll see what happens, right? A lot of problem that people seeing is like, oh, I see a double top right here. Well, you can also have a double bottom up here. It doesn't necessarily mean when you have two peaks, it's going to be a double top pattern. It's going to bring it all the way down to like the 140s and 130s. That's not how the stock market works. You have to look at other indicators and use whatever information is available to try to make a decision, right? Even if you look at the whale fund flow chart, you can see that even the whales are, really start to not have as much outflow and starting to have more inflow on the weekly chart, right? You can see that here. And every time when you're starting to see, this decrease in outflow and increase in inflow, there could potentially be some pretty decent setup that can go on for a very long time. Not to say that I think Apple is going to go green all the way up to like 260 over the next few months. Like that's not what I'm saying at all. But it's probably going to do okay for the short term within weeks, months, and maybe even years. It's probably not one of the stocks that I would want to actually buy to hold, though, not in the current state that Apple is in right now. But doesn't mean that I'm really like bearish on it for years. I still think it's going to do pretty good. What's going to happen for the short term? Let's see here, right? Let's play a game over here. What Apple is doing right now, if I just draw some Fibonacci levels, maybe from its previous all-time high to its recent cycle low. I mean, the next logical step may be the 1.618 level. That's certainly a possibility. I'm going to try and draw a different Fibonacci level, maybe perhaps from here, to try and look at the range over here. There's a confluence up here, isn't it? Around 219 or so. That's also the 1.618 level over there. Let me see. Again, I just want to confirm this, right? Yeah, so around 219, 220 is actually a pretty good confluence level. It's probably going to end up hitting that maybe perhaps by the end of 2025 if things are bullish. Maybe, sorry, the end of 2024 before 2025 starts, perhaps, right? Or you can end up extending over to 2025. It certainly looks like a possibility. I mean, 220, 219, 220 seems like a pretty logical target based on Fibonacci levels. What if we're having a recession? Well, why you worry about that? We just had a recession in, 2022. People aren't calling it, but there certainly seemed to have a lot of deleveraging that happened. There certainly seemed to have a stock market crash. Banks failed. Liquidity crunch was happening. The only thing that really wasn't happening was really just unemployment is really low. That's really the only thing. But you have a stock market crash in 2022. You had a stock market crash in 2020. You also had a stock market crash in 2018, around the trade wars when President Trump was doing his thing. So would you expect this to happen again in 2024? What are we going to have, like a stock market crash every 2 years from now on out? I'm just not so sure about that. Right? Let's talk about something a little bit happier. Let's talk about a stock that I've been buying and that I do own, which is SQ, formerly known as Square. Now, there is one thing that I'm very, very proud of, and I'm going to show you this. Around October of 2023, when everybody was really scared to the bone, when price dropped down to the low 40s, I was actually drawing this pattern over here where I was like, hey, this looks like a bullish descending broadening wedge. I think we might bottom over here. This looks like a very nice hammer candle. I think that was a bottoming candle. Kept on going down, but didn't really break this wick right there. And I think that there's a chance where you just kind of go up, It looks crazy. I think it looks insane. It would probably need time to play out. But next thing you know, it did play out. That's the crazy thing. Next thing you know, it did end up doing that. Like, it did exactly that. If you do, like, it depends on where you want to draw the pattern. Like, these are just lines, by the way. Like, everybody can draw lines. Like, it doesn't matter. But if I just touch if I do a couple lines, just touch all the wicks over here, right? You can see that maybe it had a little bit of deviation up and it just kind of dropped back down. But the wedge, the descending broadening wedge really look intact. Like, it really looks very, very promising. Just like the picture over here is almost relatively picture perfect, except that we had a little bit of a deviation, a little bit of a failed breakout over here. But it also depends on where you want to draw the lines. Again, these are just like drawing lines. Like, I don't really like to fix the lines just to kind of fit my own personal bias. Like, if you draw the lines like in a certain way, you can make it look like it's just doing a little bit of back test, right? Before going up. I mean, I don't like that. But theoretically, let's just say this, right? If you draw the lines over here, what basically happened is, yeah, it did have a little bit of like a fake breakout on low volume, right? So I cannot really be convinced that this is true breakout. But anyway, my point is that it fit this pattern here quite perfectly, and sometimes you just have to brag about it. And there are a few things that are very favorable too for SQ. I'm going to go back to the monthly chart here so that I don't confuse you with all these labels that I'm not showing. I'm going to delete these lines over here. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the couple of things that I want to show you here. First thing first is the whale fund flow. What are they doing? What are the whales doing? It looks like they're coming in over the last few months. From this bottom over here, it looks like they're in now, right? And what's happening right now? Price consolidating sideways, volumes declining, and the whales are coming in. Looks like a pretty good setup, right? If you look at the Bollinger Band, if you look at Bollinger Bands over here, you can pull up the 20-month moving average. And you can see that the orange line over here is the 20-month moving average. We got rejected over here and flipped from resistance over here to support. And when it turns to support, it's also positive sloping, so it's going to serve as a pretty decent support. Sure enough, price went down, bounced from here. So the Bollinger Band looks pretty good. What about the Ichimoku Cloud? The Ichimoku Cloud is telling you that the Tenkan line, which in a bear market would serve as resistance, in bull market would flip into support. Basically, it's been turning into support over here. And so far, it's looking pretty decent too. Again, price kind of going sideways. You have a little bit more of a whale coming in based on this Blackhead L3 fund flow trend oscillator. Let's look at the weekly too, kind of try and see what it's trying to do. On the weekly, it actually looks very, very good. I mean, you do have a little bit of an outflow over here, but can you imagine like what happened ever since it bottomed over here? Whale's just been piling up and up and up and up and up for months and months and months and months, right? You have a little bit of a back test, a little bit of weakness over here. You did have a little bit of, like a little bit of exiting over here for this week. But for the most part, whales are still in, because you can tell that because the monthly, like the whales are still in. So a little bit of a decline doesn't really scare me. And if you just look at the weekly Ichimoku Cloud, what it's doing is really just a little bit of a breakout of the Ichimoku Cloud on high volume, and you're just doing a little bit of low volume back test down here. around this area. If I take out the banker whale oscillator here, if I just pull out the RSI, and if I get rid of the Ichimoku cloud, you can see what they're really doing here. There is a hidden bullish divergence that's been happening. And it's happening in a very, very beautiful way too. Price went up, RSI went down, reset it a little bit, trying to build up a little bit more energy, trying to get a little bit more volume, trying to break above the line that I was telling you about, trying to break above this line over here, right? It just needs to kind of reserve a little bit more energy and try to find some better ground to kind of push you above. RSI looks like it's probably going to end up push above. Earlier, like yesterday, there's a little bit of a manipulation that happened. If you look at the daily chart, you know what I mean. Like, that was a manipulation move over here. They're talking about, criminal charges on block again. Whenever you hear these news, generally it just means buy, because I've been following the stock for quite a few years now, and this stock had been hit with all kinds of narrative, like short reports, criminal activity using cash apps, like it's just been non-stop FUD. And these FUD usually are pretty well timed too. So when I hear these FUD, like I usually, I don't know, it's probably a Pavlovian thing, you probably shouldn't do it, but I associate that with, FUD buy. Like that's kind of how this classical conditioning has been working out for me. You can see if you look at a Bollinger Band, if you're a Bollinger Band trader, you would have bought here when it's right outside the lower Bollinger Band. That would have been a very sweet spot to buy, right? And certainly it seems like a lot of traders have bought. And that FUD news also just came out like the day before earnings too, which is just insane, right? And earnings results, sure enough, after this FUD news, earning results, how was it? Was it good or was it bad? Let me wonder. Let's see. Actually, it was pretty good. Beating top line, crushing bottom line, raising guidance, and the stock went up about 7% after hours. I think we're just trying to build up enough energy to really try to push us out of this bear market trend line over here that's been going on for a very long time. I think probably by tomorrow or early next week with good earnings with a little bit of buying energy, we're probably going to end up hitting this line here again. Is it going to break out this time? I don't know. I still think that this is a pretty decent resistance over here, but we do start to have a little bit of bullish energy with this hidden bullish diversion that's building up over here with RSI. That might be it, but we'll see. Let's talk about my favorite stock that has also had earnings after hours, and it just dropped by like 15%. And I'm still bullish in it, which is Cloudflare. Ticker symbol NET. What do institutions think about it? Institutions like it. They've really been accumulating for a very, very long time, and so far the institutional ownership is like 87%. The big knock against NET, against Cloudflare, is that their valuation is simply way too high for some people. They are growing about 40% per year. I guess you did have a little bit of a slowdown, but maybe around like 30-40%. So the valuation is going to end up being a lot higher because of that. Whether or not it justifies a 20x sales, that's a different story. But the earnings have basically beat top line, bottom line. Their guidance just kind of met expectations. I guess when you have high valuation, everybody just expects really, really good results. Your results have to be like absolutely perfect, but it just wasn't, probably because of guidance was just right at where Wall Street was kind of expected to be. The problem with this though is that I'm gonna show you what my problem with that is. Last earnings was extremely good and the reaction was very, very powerful. I'm going to draw the Fibonacci level here. I'm going to, and this is going to be relevant in terms of what I want to talk about here next. Last earning, the results was received so positively that price shot up from one Fibonacci level, which is going to be the 0.236, to another. Like it went all the way up to something absolutely ridiculous, like 116, right, is where the top of this wick over here, right? And when I saw that, I was like, I don't think it's gonna break through this Fibonacci level on the first try. Like, this is not sustainable, and I think it's probably gonna end up having some cool down. Is it gonna cool down downwards? Or is it gonna cool down sideways? Before breaking up after a few months? I don't know, right? But what I did not think that this was justified. There's a big giant green candle over here. If you're a momentum chaser, you would chase this, and you've been gotten hurt all the way from like 116, and today after hours is like in the mid 70s. So chasing momentum, I get that, but I've never really been like a momentum chaser. Now this is the post that I made, right around um, the earning call, when price shot up from like 90 all the way to like 112. I basically just saying, on post here, I said, hey, I have a hard time seeing it. Let's go and pass the Fibonacci retracement level where I have found some resistance over here. If we go past it, it's going to go to the next level. But should I chase here after pop like 24% after hours? I don't know. I don't have the answer to the question because I've been buying a falling knife. My cost average is around the 50s, right? I've been buying a falling knife whenever it was looking like this, and it is. I don't like to chase momentum, but man, my hand was hurt back in the days. This is back in like exactly about a year ago. So price, if you take into consideration, price went from like the low 40s all the way up to today, even after hours. After it dropped a bunch, you're still talking about like the 40s to like the 70s, right? Do I think it's gonna end up staying around the 70s? I think like it was around like 76 or something like that, probably like closer to this area over here at the volume shelf, and also closer to some of these horizontal support over here. Is it gonna end up being down here? I don't know. Is it gonna end up going down further? Probably not, based on what I'm seeing in terms of what the whales have been doing on the monthly chart. Probably not. Based on the fact that it has like 82% institutional ownership and it was kind of increasing over time, probably not. I fear that more likely scenario, what it's going to do is probably going to overshot the Fibonacci level down here. It's going to overshot the 81 level down here, just like it overshot the Fibonacci level up here. And it probably is going to go up back above this Fibonacci level and then maybe spend the next few months trying to figure out what it wants to do. But this green candle over here, this big giant wick right here, really wasn't justified. But people are just having such a bullish feelings about Cloudflare that they just can't help but to chase. And now I think we're gonna go overreact down to the downside here. I can't really comment on the valuation fears that some people may have. All I know is that the whales have been entering, and what I do know is that volatilities are caused by traders, but institutions are there to set the floor. So we'll see whether or not the stock gets bought up tomorrow. And I also want to see if the stock gets bought up over the next few weeks. Something tells me that it would probably find support somewhere around like the low 80s. A couple other things too that makes me feel relatively bullish about it. If you look at the monthly, what it's doing right now is it had a bullish cross at the Tenkan Kijun. It had a bullish cross over here. And whenever you have a bullish cross over here, generally precipitate a stronger bull move. This whole downtrend has been on relatively low volume too, so I think this whole downtrend over here is a little bit of low commitment. I mean, it's a little bit hard to fathom. I mean, bears can just come out of the woodwork and they can just have high volume selling. Sure, it can break down all the way down, like that's always possible, right? But so far the trend is not in favor of it being too bearish, because so far up until this point, all the way from like April or May of 2023 up to this point, it's just been forming higher low and higher high. And so far you just have like these 2 or 3 inside candles over here looking like it might form, like what we call like a rising 3 kind of thing. But, sure enough, price after hours drop down to like the mid 70s. So you might not have the rising 3 methods working out anymore. But I don't know. I mean, tomorrow's a new day. It could go down further, but I still think it's going to be an overreaction based on technical analysis. If you look at the 2-month Ichimoku Cloud, you can see the 2-month level is right down here around 77. There's a possibility that it was, a little bit of resistance here, kind of flip as support, and it's back testing the support again before going up further. There's always that possibility. But I still think that based on whales, based on Ichimoku Cloud, based on Fibonacci level, the fact that it's just kind of trying to, range bound between two Fibonacci levels. And also, if you just look at the Bollinger Band, it looks like it's a pretty decent, bull trend. The 20-month moving average is pointing way up. I think you're going to end up getting some pretty decent support down here from a lot of different angles. So those are kind of my thoughts on this stock that I do own. I do want to talk about another one that just had its earnings, and it really hasn't moved at all, which is Coinbase now. Now, Coinbase really kicked butt in terms of their earnings. They beat the top line, they crushed the bottom line. It is incredibly cyclical, and I do think that this is not unexpected, because if you look at the stock price, it did go all the way from like the 30s all the way up to the 200s, didn't it? So I don't think it's entirely unexpected. The question Wall Street has is whether or not it's going to keep going. Is this a top? I mean, my personal answer is no, but I'm just a cat, and I also have another couple of videos to tell you why I think it's a no. But the stock really hasn't done anything for about 3 months. There's a better way to kind of illustrate this, but again, what price is doing right now has just been basically forming higher highs and higher lows and higher highs and higher lows, and right now it might be ready to use this upper Bollinger Band over here, which this month is around 242. I think the 242 level is going to be a magnet either for this month or next month to really trying to push price a lot higher. Bollinger Band is still expanding. There's still a lot more room for it to go up. It doesn't look like there's any trend exhaustion because we closed the month of April underneath the upper Bollinger Band. This is actually a very bullish development. Just like over here is actually a very bullish development. This is also an inside candle, which basically just means that this is consolidation. This is cool down. Volume was low. You're basically cooling down, trying to stay back inside upper Bollinger Band because it wants to go higher. If you have these repeated candles up, way outside upper Bollinger Band, that's when you worry about trend exhaustions. And that's when you really worry about, hey, we might be getting close to the end here. I'm not really seeing that. 20-month moving average is still pointing very, very nicely up. And it's simply getting a little bit rejected over here because price has spent more than half a year here at this level. So you expect to have some resistance over here because a lot of people end up getting trapped over here, might end up trying to sell over here. So you still have some supply issues that you need to get rid of before you can go higher, as per se by this volume shelf over here. It's going to take half a year to 8 months for it to push up. I don't think so. I think price probably going to end up using the Bollinger Band here as a magnet, trying to suck the price back out over the next month or 2 or 3. And it's probably going to end up pulling price up higher because this is what bull market does. It rides up a Bollinger Band and it keeps on going up. One thing that I did unlock on TradingView, because I did end up doing a subscription of a membership here, is I'm able to open up the 2-week chart, and when I look at the 2-week chart and look at Ichimoku Cloud, it's so clear in terms of what it's trying to do. Broke above the cloud, broke inside the cloud over here, forming higher lows and higher highs. And it's just basically forming a bull flag over here on low volume. And it's back testing the top of the 2-week Ichimoku Cloud over here. Coincidentally, it's also back testing the Tenkan line over here, which is what stocks do during bull market. You either test the Tenkan or you can go down a little bit further and test the Kijun. But that's exactly what stocks do during bull market. These back tests are entirely expected. And if you also look at what the whales are doing on the 2-week, you can say that this is absolutely incredible. Whales, you have buy signal down here when price is around the 50s, and whales have just been coming in and in and in. They just keep on coming. They haven't stopped coming into the stock. There's still inflow going on right now, and this is just absolutely incredible. And I'm going to zoom out here again on the monthly. I'm going to pull up the RSI, and what you're going to see is that the price really isn't that overbought at all. The highest RSI I've gotten on the monthly was 60. This is nothing. 64, 65. This is nothing. There's no bearish divergences over here to tell me that the trend is exhausted. I'm not seeing those bam, bam, bam green candles that are just closing way outside the upper Bollinger Band. this actually looks like a pretty healthy bull trend. And you also just had a bullish TK cross, a Tenkan Kijun cross over here just like 3 or 4 months ago. Like this might be still early mid innings of this bull market over here. A lot of things are very, very positive about Coinbase still. If you look at a weekly, stop the Ichimoku cloud, just put out a bull market support band. You can tell that price just basically got really, really close to the bull market support band. And this is a bull market. Whenever you have a bull market, if you want to have a healthy bull market, you're gonna want to tap the bull market support band as much as you can. You can pull the band up higher, but as long as you keep tapping it, this could be a pretty healthy, bull market that's happening over here. Now this over here, it hasn't touched the bull market support band over here. Whenever it ended up touching it, serve as resistance over here, right? But it flipped from resistance to support. It's been going for quite some time, and right now it's still very, very positive sloping. Do I think there's a possibility where price can go down to like the 190s to really touch the band, which can satisfy my Tourette syndrome? I think it's very possible, but it doesn't have to do what I want it to, right? It doesn't have to go all the way down to the 190s and touch it before going higher. It can just go higher from here. And certainly earnings was good. Like there's never any guarantee in terms of how the stock's going to react to earnings. After all, this stock did go from like the 30s to like 200s within a very, very short period of time, like 2 years. But I still think that this stock is going to go higher, which is the crazy thing. One last one I want to show you. And this is a stock that I do have a small position in, which is DraftKings. DraftKings is a king. If you just go to the monthly, or even just look at the weekly, this is a bull trend. They pull out the Bollinger Band. It's a very healthy bull trend because it doesn't really get way above the upper Bollinger Band. It's just kind of respecting it. The upper Bollinger Band is expanding upwards. And it's just kind of slowly riding up. Price get a little bit too overextended, it just goes sideways down here a little bit. 20-month moving average is pointing way up, right? You're basically got a little bit of a headwind resistance over here. Price spent about a whole year up around this volume shelf. You're going to need to have some time to kind of punch above this. It's not just going to go to like 55 in a hurry. You're probably going to need to work out some stuff, try to find some support and push price up higher. But right now, it's undeniably a bull trend. Like 20-month moving average is very, very nicely pointing up. You look at Ichimoku Cloud, what happened back in March? Price went to like 50, way further from the Tenkan line over here. And this looks like it's potentially a longer term bull trend because you did have a bullish TK cross, Tenkan Kijun cross over here. So this looks like probably a sustainable bull trend that might go on for even a lot longer. But whenever price just got way outside, way above the Tenkan, you're going to have some cooling down over here. This is a stock, it respects gravity. You go up too far, you jump up too far, you're going to go back down to the ground. The ground can continue to raise because it's a bull market, but eventually you're going to have to kind of get close to it. What happened over here when it got way too far, way too fast? Went sideways for 2 months, got a little bit of bullish engulfing candle over here, pushed price up higher. Now the interesting thing is, you're starting to have the bottom part of the Ichimoku Cloud being formed over here. This is the Ichimoku Cloud in its infancy. This is the Ichimoku Cloud whenever it's actually fully formed, which is not going to happen until like the end of 2025. Price punch into the cloud and is staying inside the cloud. Back tested the cloud over here too. The next resistance is going to be this big giant volume shelf over here, maybe another one up top. Just because price has spent a long time over here in 2020, 2021. But that's okay. This is a part of investing for you. There are a lot of very bullish development that's happening. For example, price went sideways, got back closer to the Tenkan. And I think that the Tenkan is probably going to end up rising over the next, month or two. Definitely in 2 months because the Tenkan takes into account of like a 9 candle average. And it's still taking into account these candles over here. Once it's no longer taking into account this candle over here, which is going to be around like July, Tenkan is going to shoot up way up. The volume is also favorable. Like the month of April really wasn't a high volume at all, even though the candle looked kind of like a little bit of a nasty bearish engulfing candle. The volume really isn't that there to like really confirm any bad bearishness happening. So overall, this is a pretty good chart. Let's put up the 2 week. And I like to put up the 2 weeks, trying to see what it's doing. It broke above the Ichimoku cloud here on the 2 week chart. It's going to back test all the way down to 37, maybe. I doubt it. Try and find some support up here in the Tenkin so far on the 2 week chart. Looking pretty nice. It's just that we have a lot of headwind above. And if you just put the weekly, the Ichimoku cloud is probably not going to help you that much. But if you just do the boomerang support band, it's just like Coinbase. It's touching the boomerang support band and just being pushed up by it. The boomerang support band might be strong enough to kind of help push above this volume shelf over here over the next few months. And when you're talking about after breaking this shelf, it probably could go a lot higher. Do I think that you're going to end up having some like brutal like 10-20% pullback at some point? Sure. I mean, it does that. Like this is like a 20% pullback over here. This is like a close to like a 15% pullback. Like it's doing what it needs to do, and it's touching the bull market support band. This looks healthy. So I think price probably going to end up going a lot higher over time. I do have a small position, but I'm not going to add to it just because I don't like to chase. But I think it's probably going to keep going, so I think it's a hold for me. My cost average is also very low, so it doesn't really matter to me. But, I find this whole thing very favorable. Let me see. I want to put up the 2 week whale fund flow chart here. And you can see like the whales have been coming in. It's starting to get, not as much inflow anymore at this point. But you have to keep in mind that this doesn't mean that you're starting to have any significant outflow or anything like that, because this is a trend oscillator, and right now it's still just basically just touching top, right? So you still have a lot of inflow coming in. It's just unfortunately this is an oscillator. It's just kind of pushing up here for quite some time. And are you having the same bullishness energy as you did over here at the beginning of the bull trend? No, but I still think the price can go a lot higher. Anyway, I just keep talking and talking for over half an hour already, but I did go for about 5 stocks. So excuse me, I'm going to put some timestamps on here. Thank you so much for listening. Have a good one. Bye.